Deputy Police Minister Cassel Mathale's testimony at the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee into Criminal Infiltration of the SAPS has placed the role of deputy ministers in sharp focus. Mathale told MPs that he and his fellow deputy Polly Boshielo had not been given any official responsibilities and delegation of duties from suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu since their appointment over a year ago. In July, Action SA filed a motion which, if passed, would abolish the role of deputy ministers. There are 43 deputy ministers in cabinet, with each receiving about 2.2 million rand per annum. Let's discuss this now with political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebesi. Good morning. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika, Prof.
Good morning, Master Chaba, and good morning to the viewers.
Now, firstly, Professor, what does Mathale's revelation really tell us about how government portfolios are being managed in this government?
Well, Mathale's revelation actually tells us what many are complaining about, a very bloated government structure. But if we also look back at the start of our democratic dispensation, perhaps there was a reason, even in the past during the apartheid era, to have these deputy ministers, because we know they do play a support role in supporting the ministers, representing them, and overseeing specific functions. But fact of the matter is, if the question is being put on the table to say, but are these deputy ministers still relevant today in South Africa? I would say perhaps it's about time that we revisit this particular decision that had been taken way back, because we need to look at the fiscal accountability, and whether it is definitely, does it make any financial sense to have people who are just lingering around.
Yeah, let's actually talk about their function. What is the actual constitutional role of a deputy minister in South Africa's executive architecture?
Yeah, as we all know, it's part of the executive governance structure. Although they are not part of cabinet, but they do support ministers. One of the first main primary goals of any deputy, whether you're now a deputy chairperson even of an organization, is to support the chairperson. And the same applies to deputy ministers. They need to support the minister, the role of that in executing the duties of that particular ministry, whether it's the police, correctional services, and any government department, but also to oversee specific functions. And in the case of Mathale and everybody else who have not been assigned the roles, and I really want to reflect on that, that also is very indicative of how naive some of our leaders are, because I regard somebody in that who have been elected in that position to be very responsible. And one of the responsibilities will be to question, but why have I not been assigned duties? But definitely to represent the minister when the minister is not available, but specific duties will also be assigned to a specific deputy minister.
So, Professor, how does it happen constitutionally and administratively that a deputy minister can go for a year with no assigned duties?
No, it's possible. In South Africa today, if you've got executive power, you almost have a license to do as you wish. If you look at what is happening at any level of government, some people have been entrusted with certain responsibilities. And I mean, I will just go back a year ago. If you ask me, was it the right decision that the president have taken in terms of allocating all these deputy ministers and the restructuring? It was not. It was a decision that was taken to respond to a certain situation, and that was the government of national unity. And that same right that the president has on responsibility sometimes can be exploited, where you now need to respond to patronage, you now need to reach out to certain comrades to try and patronize them at the expense of South Africans. If you look at South Africans, we are under tremendous pressure in terms of, the way we are taxed in South Africa. And perhaps one way this will alleviate the pressure on South Africans if we revisit. It's not too late to revisit this, but for me, definitely, it also has to do with some of the prerogative of the president, and also it's sometimes political influence.
All right. So, Professor, and you did allude to this earlier as well, that, some decisions that were made a long time ago need to be revised. So do you believe that the deputy minister structure is being used as a political reward system rather than a governance necessity?
Well, not in all instances, and that's why I've said one has to be very careful if you look at this particular situation. There are instances. What happened last year, clearly, it was not a financial decision that would have enhanced governance. It was not in the interest of governance, definitely not. Some of the decisions that have been taken, if you look at the governance structure of the GNU, it was definitely responding to certain skewed political priorities, which has become extremely costly to South Africa. I can't put it any other way, in as much as maybe there is support for the government of national unity, but definitely not some of the decisions that have been taken around the deputy and the structure, the governance structures that emerge as a result of the government of national unity.
So, Professor, how might this affect the ANC, firstly, and the GNU's credibility heading into the next election cycle?
Well, it depends. In South Africa, you've got different layers. Even, if you look at our societal structure anyway, you've got different classes of people, and whether people do not even want to talk about that. And people respond differently to certain social pressure, certain social challenges, and it's the same in this particular case. In the South African political landscape, these are not issues that will necessarily affect the African National Congress, because you've got a large base of support who does not even focus on that unless you're now talking about your middle class, and that is not a large proportion of the ANC's voters. So I don't think issues or decisions like this will necessarily have a huge impact on voter support, or electoral support for the African National Congress.
Now, Professor, if Parliament can't define what a deputy minister does, why should the taxpayer keep paying for that mystery?
No, I think it's clear. Our constitution has spelled out all the functions of our ministers, deputy ministers, but then it is incumbent on the minister then to define those roles. But for me, it's very surprising. And as I've said, that revelation at the ad hoc committee, the SAPS ad hoc committee, it's very, very telling. It tells us a lot of what is happening on a day-to-day basis, on a daily basis in our government departments. And that for me is really worrying, that people are sitting around not knowing what to do. And the question is, for them, is it also morally justifiable to earn a salary at the end of the month without knowing what you're supposed to do or doing nothing?
Well, look, I don't think anybody would say no to a salary under any circumstance. But what implications might this have on the effectiveness of the current administration and potential reforms?
Now, as I've indicated, it's about time that we revisit our government structures. There's nothing wrong to streamline, and maybe a lot of good can come out of this. And by the way, we haven't even spoken about the other governance structures. You've got HODs. And remember, with each unit comes support staff, traveling costs, and a lot of other costs, indirect costs that comes with having these kind of governance structures, which at the end of the day then cost the South African citizens. And I strongly believe that going forward, this will have serious implications for South Africa in terms of how we, control and govern and look after our finances.
All right. Before I let you go, Prof, how can Parliament ensure transparency and accountability in the roles and responsibilities of deputy ministers moving forward?
Yes, I think this was really an opportunity not only for those who are in government, but also opposition parties, to say that we cannot allow this to continue, and perhaps this is also an opportunity for the Department of Public Administration to now go and services to go back to the drawing board when they draw up these performance management, and that also is another layer to say, but yes, people who do not have duties, how are you even going to rate their performance? And perhaps that's what this particular department should play and must play a leading role in ensuring that when we continue with this particular governance structures, that everyone knows what is expected of them, and the primary goal is to deliver services and ensure that South Africa is the kind of society and country that we all have idealized.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebesi.